Hello, everybody, and welcome to the KubeStellar Community Meeting for October 19th, 2023. We're happy to have you here. Thanks. I see some new faces on the call. If you don't want to be recorded, now's the time to drop off. If you don't want to be on video, now's the time to turn it off. To see this agenda and to comment and leave your digital footprint behind or make any changes or updates to it, please go to kubestellar.io/join us. You can do that with an underscore, or you can do that without an underscore. It works both ways. It's a Google it's a Google mailing list that you just click join, and then you get invites and all kinds of free stuff. No Ginsu knives, none of that stuff, just invites and access to this pretty little agenda. So first up, our contributor code of conduct. As contributors, maintainers in the CNCF community, and in the interest of fostering an open and welcoming community, we pledge to respect all people who contribute through reporting issues, posting feature requests, updating documentation, submitting pull requests or patches, and other activities. We are committed to making participation in the CNCF community a harassment-free experience for everyone, regardless of level of experience, gender, gender identity and expression, sexual orientation, disability, personal appearance, body size, race, ethnicity, age, religion, or nationality. Basically, folks, that just means please be kind to each other during the course of this call and elsewhere. Our meeting today is got some development, some jam-packed stuff going on, so we'll get right to it. This will be posted on kubestellar.io/TV after it's finished recording. Okay, please put your name in the attendees list if you can, and follow along with our agenda. You may put items in the agenda at the end of this specific agenda, and we'll get to it in the order it's called upon. All right, so first up, we have decoupling at KCP. Do we have anybody on here from the team? I don't see Ezra, I don't see Effi, I don't see Andrey. Okay. All right, so just let's see, basic gist of it. We've got a host of items that are inside of our queue that we're tracking to at this moment. You can follow along if you'd like to see the status of them. Effectually, what we were doing is decoupling from KCP directly, so there is no direct reference to KCP in our operational runtime, and the eventuality is not to have it in our source either. The reason for doing this is, the primary reason is because we believe that KubeStellar can work with any multi-space provider, and so this is KCP is only one of them. We do have our own called KubeFlex, and Paolo Dittori, who is also contributed to KubeStellar, is working on a sister project to KubeStellar. It's in our organization in GitHub. You can check it out. It also provides similar functionality to what KCP does, and we will be standardizing our source code to run the KubeStellar core on KubeFlex and other providers like KCP. All right. The progress of that is going well. We look, I think, to mid-November to have most of that work completed, and then towards the end of November, put some final touches and some polish on it. All right, Kube-bind is an essential part of that first rev. We will look to remove Kube-bind in the future and also decouple from it. But Jun, do you want to give any updates on Kube-bind and what your interaction has been with the folks on decoupling?
Yes. So I think the latest progress is that our contribution to Upstream is merged, and also I submit some minor PRs to further improve that, and also get merged. And then this technology is going to be used in the decoupling process to replace the KCP API export and API binding. I was actively talking to Ezra and the team to trying to identify what are the blockers, but luckily I didn't see anything that's really blocking us. So I'm going to continue working with Ezra and the team to support the decoupling effort using Kube-bind.
Thank you very much. All right, does everything seem to be on track with that? Any blockers?
No.
All right. Thanks for the update, Jun.
Yep.
All right. Let's see. Update on containerization. So Helm chart. So we've really made some big strides in the way of user experience. Particularly, we're working on two main fronts. One is on a Helm chart, and I think we've gotten the bulk of that done at this point. We do have one outstanding issue that we're working on. It has to do with a TLS certificate, and we'll be working on that in earnest in the coming weeks to figure it out. But it's not something that blocks you from using it today. Essentially, what happens is when if a KubeStellar core is removed and replaced, removed and reinstalled, the certificate changes for the syncers that are looking to authenticate, authorize against that are not able to anymore. Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify. It's not a TLS certificate. It's a bearer token that's used to authenticate the user that we choose to use.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike.
And
so
it's
the bearer
anything that causes the KCP server to restart will do that.
Right. So the bearer token rotates, right? It changes?
Every time the KCP server starts,
Correct.
it generates a new token and stops accepting the previous ones.
Right. So then the syncers get disconnected. So we're working on a way to get past that. And so stay tuned. It's a minor nit, but it's something that we think is useful for user experience in the future. The Helm chart is now also located at a new, we've also gone ahead and created a new public estate for it called helm.kubestellar.io. So our state is expanding some, and we've also created a new repository under the KubeStellar organization to house it called KubeStellar/Helm. So please visit, please try it. Give us some feedback. Thank you. In Brewland, I've been working on a package to install KubeStellar user-facing command lines and kubectl plugins. I've got most of that work done. It's in a PR, and we're just going through the particulars of trying to figure out what are the final steps to put some polish on that. And this will deliver the matching set of commands and plugins for a given KubeStellar core deployment. And so it'll be using your favorite package manager. It's supported on Linux, it's supported on Mac, and we think this will make our user experience even better. So stay tuned. That'll be released shortly. And we're also working on a user quick start. User quick start is also in a PR, and that user quick start is intended to do two things: show you how to deploy Helm, show you how to use Brew, and get going. So we're working on our ease of use, and this document is intended to be a very short introduction to how to use the install tools, but it in no way goes into the details that you need in order to use KubeStellar. So there'll be links and things to help you get past that initial install and into the real nitty gritty of what KubeStellar and the power of KubeStellar. So that's it for the Brew and the Helm. One-to-one status, Mike. I still have this in the list here. Do we have any more work to do here, or is this just
no? The review is that one is done.
Yeah,
that's in release 0.8.
Right. Okay, right. Yeah, I owe you a test on that. Thank you. All right, this looks good. Oh, and this also,
also, the example 1 has been updated. So if you run through example 1, you'll see a demonstration of this feature.
Part 2, June, and example been updated to incorporate this feature works. Okay, great. Thank you very much for that update. All right, so let's get a quick update on KubeCon China and North America. Jun, I'm going to give you the floor to present for us. You have a presentation that you put together, I understand, so be great to see that. I'll just give you a quick update on North America. We did actually get some, we have a lightning talk scheduled, I believe, or maybe Andrey, you can tell us what's scheduled for KubeCon North America.
I can. So we have for KubeStellar, we actually have a 10 to 12-minute session at the IBM booth. And that will be the giveaway. I talked with Braulio Melanconin, who is actually running the event, and he actually has giveaways, but since you actually have some additional ones, we'll be adding those in. So I think that's fantastic. I think the other thing we should plan to do at the booth is follow up the session with some sort of a follow-up, right? Whether it's a one pager, a sticker, or something, right? Some way to kind of say, like, here's how you go get more information, do more things. That could be code demos, right? We have the opportunity to do those at the booth as well. So you just kind of let me know what you guys think the right follow-up should be, and we can make that happen. But yeah, for right now, that's kind of what's planned.
Okay. I have t-shirts. I'm gonna get that started again. And maybe we can figure out other things. I don't know what other tchotchkes that you'd recommend. I've seen things like pens or
Well, you know
cards.
what's
I don't.
big? It's kind of funny. What's big at KubeCon and what Red Hat is doing this year, which I thought was kind of interesting, is they're building a sticker wall. Stickers are like people love stickers, and so I didn't have time to get stickers created for the majority of our things. In fact, I didn't have time to get any stickers made, but that's something we should look at moving forward. Is like people dig stickers, and just having them readily available is kind of a nice, easy way to get some, promotions.
Cool. Yeah, I was looking on who is it that does all that personal printing stuff? I'm drawing a blank online.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them
Yeah.
online where you can go get, so I'm happy to share links with you on like sticker vendors online that I know that I've used in the past that are really good.
Yeah, let's do that. I'd like that. I already had a sticker made up, but I just never pulled the trigger on getting it done, and now I can. So, all right, good. Thank you, Andrea. Um, Also, we'll be giving some opening remarks in the Edge Native application, Edge Native behaviors paper that we've been working on together with the folks in the, let's see if I can show it. Of course, that's not going to let me do that. There we go. Edge Native application design behaviors. I'm one of the co-authors along with two other folks from Cisco. It follows along. It's kind of a narrative about what, similar to what the 12-factor app methodology imparts, and it's a continuation of the previous paper that the IoT Edge worked on. I've been working on this for the better half of a year with the folks there. This is going into glossy format and being published, etc. So I'm really proud of this work. This is something I'll be doing on that Sunday on the Kube on the Edge portion of KubeCon. So yeah, stay tuned. There's more to come there. Let me get back to the agenda. Where did that agenda go? Andrea,
Yeah, just a quick question. Is that white paper something will it be ready for KubeCon? Could we have it
Yes.
printed and make it available at the IBM booth? Excellent, let's do
Yes.
that.
Okay, very good. I'm just trying to find my bearings here. I've lost my agenda. Hold on one second here. There we go. We're back. Okay. Sorry about that. Yeah, so I'll go ahead and get printed copies of white paper for booth. Nice. Great idea. Okay. Let's get an EU for Paris. So the WG Edge IoT will be submitted as a CFP. So so we'll get a talk in EU, I think. So that's pretty cool. So of course I'll bring the KubeStellar brand along with me. We'll also have CFP gets opens soon for EU. We'll get on that right away. And Jun, without further ado, would you like to present to us, take the screen and show us what you did in Shanghai?
Yeah, sure. Let me go ahead and share my screen. I took a few pictures during the event, which I can share when I was back. So first, here is the location of the event. The picture on the left-hand side shows a bird view of the building. I took that from Google Map. And picture on the right-hand side is the front of the building, where you can see that people are waiting here to get a security check before they can enter that building for KubeCon China. And once we enter the location, you can see from the picture on the right-hand side, that's the main lobby of the event. And we can see 3 small flags here listing the sponsors of the event. The biggest sponsor for KubeCon China is Huawei, one of the leading cloud vendors in China. And also we have Alibaba Cloud, AWS, and also have Linux foundations, as well as some hardware vendors like Intel and ARM. When I saw this list, I was interested why those hardware vendors are also listed here. So I went to the talk given by Intel and ARM to see what are they doing with the open source community. And this picture shows someone from Intel showing that what they contribute to the open source community and the cloud. And to my surprise, they are listed as the top 6 contributors to the Kubernetes community, which is shown here in the corner. And they even showed what specific things they contribute to the Kubernetes community, basically covering almost every aspect of the project. That was something new to me. I thought Kubernetes, the community for contributors from the software vendors, but I don't know that the hardware vendors are also investing on this project. I also go to the ARMS, someone from ARMS talk, and they also put open source community as an essential position to them. But different from Intel, they are mostly investing in the neural network related stuff like TensorFlow and PyTorch. They want the community to use their ARM chips as easy as possible when they use these developing tools. I think that's the motivation. So I also went to one of the keynotes trying to understand what are the new buzzword, what are the new technology trend for the coming years. And I noticed that there are at least 2 things. One is IoT plus Edge, which we are working in. And another one is WebAssembly. So I'm specifically interested on why WebAssembly is the next new feature. So I took a close look at this picture, which shows what are people doing with WebAssembly. And the top 3 reason that developers are using WebAssembly is faster loading times. If you can read here, I was very far away from the booth, so this is the best picture I can take. The second one shows exploring new use cases and technologies. I think I am within this category. And the third one is sharing code between projects. So that's what I learned from the keynote. And then I also go to several sessions which discusses detailed technology problems. And I think one of the sessions which is closely related to our work is the multi-cluster federation presented by someone from Volcano Engine. In this talk, the speaker presents what the challenges of managing multiple Kubernetes clusters. And when I was reading this list, I realized that these problems are really familiar to me. Because when I was working on KubeStellar, I more or less have seen this problem before. And the way they solve the problem is to use existing tools in the community named Commander. Actually meet a Commander maintainer in one of the sessions and make connections with him. And they use this tool to solve their problems. I feel like this thing is quite related to our work, so I found the link of the presentation and put the link here. So if we are further interested, we can delve into the details of this presentation. I think this covers the first thing I do in this event, which is going to the sessions to understand the new technologies. The second thing I did in this event is to go to different people to make connections. Actually, get connected with several maintainers to, for example, Commanda and also OpenCruise. And I also get connected with some people from Alibaba Cloud. So I think that's the second thing I did, make connections. The third thing I did, which is to trying to gain more visibility for our own project, KubeStellar. So that's why I'm wearing this T-shirt during the event. I'm walking around in that building and talking to people, trying to let them know what we are doing. So what I'm doing is that if people agree to give a start to our project, I'm going to give away one of the T-shirt I printed. So I also take a screenshot of the stars of the repository before and after the event, and you can see that we have some increase on the number of stars. So that's the third thing I do during the event, which is trying to advertise what we are doing with KubeStellar. So that's what I have. That's the three things I did during the event.
John, this is awesome. Thanks for representing us. Did a great job.
Oh, thank you.
Any questions for John?
Yeah, thank you, Andrea.
I did have one question about the WebAssembly stuff. Did you, because I think that is sort of such a hot topic these days and it's kind of trending, especially in edge use cases. Was there any kind of insight or knowledge you gathered from that or kind of vendors you saw there that were interesting that we should kind of look at as potential KubeStellar partners or potential KubeStellar use cases? Just really curious if you have any thoughts there.
What I did during the event is to observe that there's a talk talking about the Rust language. You know that WebAssembly is developed in Rust. So I go to that talk. I noticed that talk, the attendees of that talk may be the most one comparing to all the other sessions. So my feeling is that people are really interested in this topic. But back to your question, the connection between KubeStellar and WebAssembly, I didn't think of that before. I will keep that in mind to see whether I have an answer for you later in the future.
And Andrea, to back up on what Jun just said, I have direct connections to the folks that are in charge of that WASM push in the IoT Edge. Kate Goldenring is one of them. There's a few others. They'll be giving talks on the Edge Day, so I can introduce you to them. I think there is a play here for KubeStellar. I'm not. I'll go so far as saying that for now.
Excellent. Thank you.
Can I just add on that, right? I mean, we have talked about this a little, right? So just to expand, right? I think the play is to look at what we're talking about in KubeStellar is multi-cluster configuration management. We're talking about managing Kubernetes API objects. Kubernetes has an API for containerized workloads. With the Kubernetes API style, you could just as well have an API for not containers, but WASM workloads. And KubeStellar could distribute object or manage that sort of configuration as well.
Yep.
And I offer a thought on that. So it's been a couple of months since I've actually worked with WebAssembly, but the place that I had seen WebAssembly starting to make some inroads into was actually as a user interface. It started to represent a server-side application that looks a whole lot more like a full-fledged application that we're used to running on like Windows or on our laptop, but over the web. And I would think like, obviously like what you said is totally valid about like, yeah, we can do that also. But I think one thing to consider for KubeStellar is like, does WebAssembly play a role at some point in the user interface for what you're doing for this project? I think that's the one that really needs to be thought of is like, how do we evolve to meet the needs or to incorporate into the ecosystem of what people are doing with WebAssembly on a user interface front?
Great. Okay. Yes.
Great friggin' idea. Love it, Gerald. Thank you. Looks like a weekend project coming. You know anything about how to build one of those newfangled WASMs?
I mean, passing knowledge. Like we've played with some code. Like a friend of mine and I, that he actually works for LexisNexis, the legal company. And
Yeah.
we've developed some code to do some nifty things, and it's really interesting because you typically think of like web pages and Java and Flash and HTML5. This is like a step beyond that to actually have like a full application and a web interface, which looks and behaves a whole lot more like even just seeing a full Windows desktop, but it's all running in WebAssembly. So
Love it. Gerald, if you can pass along any links, that would be great. I would love
absolutely,
it.
I'll go find them and send them over to you, Andy.
Looks like fun.
Yeah.
I'm always looking for weekend work. Okay, so if you could shoot up, let's see, go down 2 slides from where you are now. 9, 10, yeah. And so this top left one was just really caught my eye when Jun was showing it. So I think let me go in the opposite order here. So problem 2, workload fragmentation. I think we got a handle on per cluster customization because we have something called customize with a C in our edge placement. So I think that looks good, and we're starting to exercise that with more clients. Multi-cluster service discovery for apps. That's more on the app side, so I don't know. I don't really have anything to weigh in on there. Sync apps between clusters. If they mean to sync apps from a central location, we have that. If it's cluster to cluster as peers, we don't have that. I don't know what's exactly meant by that. But we have vendor lock-in. I mean, we're in the open source, so, and we are modular by default, and we're looking to partner and work with anybody in the ecosystem. So I don't think we don't promote vendor lock-in here, that's for sure. Of course, there's other issues that come up as a result of working with vendors that may provide you with some measure of lock-in. Boundary of clusters, of course, we know that we're adding atop of single Kubernetes clusters, we're adding the ability to bridge across them and use them in concert. So I feel like problem 3 is not really something that we need to be totally concerned of. I think we do address some of that. And so, but in the area of too many clusters, I think we still have some work to do. So I wanted to let everybody know, I've been doing a lot of thinking in this space. So things like repetitive setup, we shouldn't be contributing to that, that issue. Incompatible cluster lifecycle API, we shouldn't be contributing to that. And we should be trying to, solve as best we can fragmented API points. So I would take as a charter for those 3 items I think they're not things that KubeStellar has to fix, but they're things KubeStellar should do a good job at suggesting how someone else might work so that they don't use those types of problems as ways to say, well, KubeStellar doesn't help me, because it just adds to the complexity. Yeah, Andrea.
Yeah, just a quick question on this. So when we look at these kind of problems, and where would you guys say, and I know this is outside of KubeStellar, but like, where would you say like network boundaries fit, like cluster connectivity and stuff? I was thinking it was problem 3, but like the boundary of the clusters, but I'm not sure, and I just want to get your thoughts on that.
I think it has a play in 1 in terms of too many clusters, right? Sprawl. And it also is part of problem 2, but you could mention it in 3 also. So I think it's probably all of the 1, 2, and 3. It has some piece of it in each. I think network is pervasive in that sense, but that's just my thought. Mike?
Well, I was just going to say, depending on what you mean, yeah, I mean, there's more structure to it, but yeah, I think it touches on all of those.
Yeah.
Mainly 2 and 3, I would say.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Anything else for Jun?
That's interesting because a small comment on that. My experience in some of the security compliance stuff is boundary is very much networking, and specifically defined in NIST 800-53 is being strict networking. that, you can't communicate with a network that doesn't have its own defined network boundaries. So I would call it squarely number 3.
Okay. Fair point. Thanks for getting all standards on us. Appreciate it. All right. Thanks, Jun.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you, everyone.
Great job.
And by the way, I just have to add, I'm so impressed you could quote those network, those NIST standards, like just off the top of your head.
When you try to operate inside of them, you learn them at a different level. Like it's pragmatism.
You got to watch out though. Gerald tends to use those for other things too. Like the other day, he told me I had to be in the office at 9 a.m. And he said, "Well, in 800-53, it says."
Andy, like you're just making stuff up now.
All right. Well, you may have got me on that. Okay. I'll give you that.
That's Arvid you're thinking about. That was your conversation you had with Dario.
Whoa. All right. We have to turn the recording off now. Sorry, folks. All right. So upcoming API changes. We've got a couple of issues outstanding. Let's see. I think 1084 was this. 1084 was merged in. We got select namespaces by names rather than label selector. Thank you very much, Mike. 1064. I think this is also, nope. Oh yeah, this is CRDs. I owe some stuff on that. Oh, actually, no. Mike is working on this. I don't owe this one. I have one on subscriptions. I think, 909 we didn't get around to yet. Right. But we're making other progress in other areas that may or may not obviate that. So, all right. All right, versioning. We've got anything we want to comment on here? Mike, you would kick this off last time. Anything more that we want to talk about here?
Let me just see where you're pointing. Oh, yeah. So we haven't really had any discussion, so I don't know if there's much to say. We
Okay.
did in release 0.8 increment the major version on the Kube API because we made backward incompatible changes, so that's the normal thing to do, and we did it. We need to, we still have some more versioning to do. We're starting to work on start to do changes in the version in the Helm chart. That's part of it also. But there's more design and organization to be done.
Okay. All right. One of the things that I wanted to, so we did a pre-release for 0.80. Do we want to move that to release or are we still jury's out? What are we thinking? Anybody have any suggestions, Mike?
Yeah, well, the only actual bug that I know of, and it's not very serious, is the way the executables that navigate from the bin directory to the peer chart or config directory doesn't work when there's a symlink involved. But if your use case doesn't involve that, as far as I know, release 8 works. If you read the updated instructions on the release 8 branch on the website, use the bootstrap script from the release 8 branch on the website. So I think it is usable as far as I know.
So why don't we, I have a suggestion, but you tell me what you think. Why don't we rev to .9, get that bug in, the fix for that, and that'll coincide with Brew. What do you think, Mike?
Well, first thing, the normal procedure, you asked about calling 0.8 stable. The question is, do we have any experience with someone trying to use it?
No, we don't.
Okay, let's try and we can't call it stable until we have some decent testing. I've tested it a little. I would like maybe a little more. Or we could just not bother with it and push forward to 0.9.
That's where I was going, is I think we should push forward to 0.9 and just get Brew out of that.
Okay.
I don't know. That's my thoughts. What does everybody else think on the call? Anybody from the community want to weigh in on this? Kevin's had some experience with .8.
Oh, I have core installed. I don't have any execution clusters yet, so I can't tell you how well it actually works to control things.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I don't think 0.8, great progress. I think we could do a 0.9, get the whole caboodle in there, which is the update that we need to make sure 0.8 works with Symlinks, and of course that supports Brew. So I'll go ahead and push in that direction. But if anybody has any reservations, let us know. All right, folks. Let's see. We're at 40 past. Let's see where we are now. Go there. Why did I lose this again? Just finding my way around. Here we go. Back. I keep forgetting it's at the end. Okay, cool. So I think that's what we have for today. Let's go. We'll finish up with a triage. Some notes. So we got a couple of things that are in test. These items that are, we have 52 items that are done. We've got a crazy velocity going on this sprint. Just FYI, this sprint ends November 1st, sprint 5. We have a few items in test. Most of these have to do with fixes that were provided for 0.8, and we haven't had time to test them yet. So 0.8 just came out this week. So we'll be doing that in conjunction with building 0.9, and these can then be queued up to be tested in there. The multi-cloud computer work that we've been doing with MCAD in the open source has been coming along well. There's 2 items that I believe that we should try and address by the end of the year that'll help us even more. This idea of automatic configuration of non-namespaced API group resources and names based on resources in a workload management workspace or a workload workload description space. That's 1080, and 1096 I think is also another one that we can focus some attention on. And this is how to get our syncers out to lots and lots of locations, in some way automated. So we'll see more about this. Has a lot to do with our user experience from an operator's perspective, and our user experience from deployment perspective. Getting things out and deployed with very little friction, if possible. A couple items that have been driven out of this work with MCAD jointly. Of course, the Brew installer, the one that I'm working on. There's the PR for it, 1140. We have a new label that we're thinking about affixing to our edge placements that allows any target to be part of a bigger conglomerate. This might be a different name than clusters : all. It might be locations : all. But either way, it's basically to say, let's say I want a specific workload to go to every managed cluster that I have in a state. Then if I have that default label on all my edge placements, I can simply select it. I don't have to put it on each one of them. So that'd be nice to have on each one of our locations. Let's see, default out of the box support for OpenShift operators, default out of the box support for custom resource definitions. Those 2 items we're looking at and potentially fixing. Some of them are small, some a little bit on the medium side, but they're coming. We have a typo in one of our commands. We're going to remove. It's an old reference we had to an old name that we used for some of our edge clusters, or for all of our edge clusters. We used to call them P clusters. They're now called workload execution clusters. We need to just update that text. Syncer has gone offline. We weren't using the health and the status heartbeat that was coming back. That is part of the natural collection status, and so Yana is going to help us out with building that into the syncer. Thank you very much, Yana. Let's see what else we got. We're talking more and more about collecting metrics. As you roll these a KubeStellar environment out to a large estate, you want to collect metrics about how each of your targets are operating, and you have metrics available to you by default in each one of these cluster configurations. So why not surface them in something like a nice looking Grafana dashboard? So that's coming soon too. There's some other items in here. Some of them are not as high a priority as others, but you feel free to list and look through them. Next column up is KCP decoupling. These items are, this is for November 1st deadline, and then we have more in Sprint 6 for carrying us through the remainder of November, where we should finish a lot of this work. So that's up and coming. In high priority, we have another turn of the crank on our ArgoCD suggested architectures. What the goal of this particular item is to give us a way to say ArgoCD, for those that use ArgoCD to deploy applications and workloads throughout their estate, you could also use KubeStellar to either help you do that with ArgoCD, or you could use KubeStellar in place of ArgoCD. So we think that there's an argument to be made that ArgoCD could use KubeStellar for that last mile, that connection with the sync targets. And so we're coming up with another version of a deployment architecture diagram that depicts that. We had to do some work internally to get that fixed. One of the issues we talked about earlier on one-to-one status needed to be resolved and merged, and it has been. So that unblocks this issue to continue. Experimentation with MCAD, that refers to this MCC column. And matter of fact, let's move it over there. All right, and we have a need now that we have a Helm chart to deploy KubeStellar Core. It would be great to be able to test that in our continuous integration actions, GitHub actions, and workflows. So we'll be working on that in the future. Some other items in progress. We're still working with folks that represent the European Space Agency on how to do interplanetary configuration lifecycle management for deployment on things like satellites and other bodies that are running on moons or planets. You know, who knows what the future brings, comets, etc. So just stay tuned. There's a lot of space exploration things going on there. And the same is here, and a blog on the same will be coming. We're working on a user guide that's more simplistic than the current set of documentation that we have now. So stay tuned. There's a PR for 2 different types of user guides. One might be for collaborators and contributors. The other might be for the just basic, you know, hey, just get me started with KubeStellar. So we've got 2 of those running simultaneously. And let's see what else there is. Is there anybody on the call who's working on anything specifically that I haven't mentioned so far that would like to bring it up for discussion or comment? Mike, any of the issues that you're working on that you think could use a little bit more discussion? We can hold it here.
Well, I'll just mention my thought on 909. So currently we have, you know, in the edge placement, it's binding, you know, what to deploy with where to deploy it, or what to place or distribute with where to go put it. And we have a where resolver that evaluates the where part of it and creates single placement slice objects to show the result of that evaluation. We also have something that evaluates the what part, but currently we don't put that answer anywhere. We just use it inside the controllers. Inside one controller. That's why it doesn't go anywhere external. So the thought is to externalize that analogously. So it would be about creating something like a workload, workload object, or resolved what, I don't know, some kind of slice of references to workload objects that would be externalized. So that would give direct visibility to the results of evaluating the what part of the edge placement. If anybody has any thoughts on ways to good, bad, other ideas, whatever.
Mike, yeah, I like the idea. What do you think the role of the SPS is in all of this? I mean, I thought potentially that the SPS was something that would indicate something that was going to be delivered to a specific mailbox and then onto its. Where do you see this other object that you're talking about residing or being accessed from?
Right. So again, the mailbox spaces or workspaces are not
Internal.
intended, right? They're internal, so users should not be looking at those.
Right.
So really, the primary problem here for users to say in terms of the control, right? The user interface here is the users. They're talking about their workload in the normal way. Then they need to say what goes where. So there's 2 parts of that: identifying the what and identifying the where. And the edge placement object is binding some whats with some wheres. So these are different subjects of discourse. The edge placement object is a binding object, and so it's binding 2 different kinds of things together. So the where is one kind of thing, and the what is the other kind of thing. So we're currently externalizing the result of evaluating the where. My thought is we should also externalize the result of evaluating the what.
Okay. Good. All right, let's I have one that I'd like to maybe we can use the balance of the time on to talk about. I know that we haven't, let's see. Yeah, so here's one that I've been wanting to queue up for a while, but we haven't gone into much more detail about it in an open forum. So maybe it's something that others would benefit from. So right now, currently, when you define a workload for KubeStellar to pick up, you use what's called an edge placement object. An edge placement object that you define says, as Mike was pointing out, what you want to put somewhere and where you want to put it. So that combination of what and where is interpreted by the KubeStellar controllers to eventually then be queued up and ready for a target, a sync target or syncer to pull and apply to its edge location. So it works really well. The state machine in the middle is doing a great job. We've done a lot of testing with it so far, and it's done very well. Where I think we can do a little better is the creation of this edge placement object takes some know-how, some instruction, some education on how to use it. In particular, let's see if I could even bring one up. That's an example of what I'm doing. 1 second, I'll see if I have it queued here. So the edge placement object not only takes the what and the where, but it gives you, you have to give a little bit more fine-grained selection of what API groups you want to have accessible to each one of these objects that you've placed in this edge placement. You also have to, that includes things like if you want to deploy an operator on OpenShift, you have to give explicit notation to say you want the subscription CRD invoked. And also you have to supply the subscription CRD inside the package that you're about to deploy, because the sync target may not have that CRD. And so you can't make an assumption that it does. You have to deliver it with it. So there's that object. There's also, CRDs in general, right? Any custom resource definition that you're going to be passing along. Anything that's namespaced is going to be inside of a namespace itself. So just telling KubeStellar that, hey, use this, take everything in this namespace and apply it to the syncer, that works really well. But then what about those cluster scoped objects, those non-namespaced objects? Well, those are the things that you kind of got to do by hand. And so my thinking is that there's a potential I've seen before is that you can get error messages back from after you try to apply a resource, you do a kubectl apply, for instance, you get an error message back. It says, okay, I don't have all the resources that I need in order to deploy this. So would it be possible, and I think would it be possible for KubeStellar to listen for this type of error? And when it's found, and when this error has been exposed and bubbled up to the core for KubeStellar, can we then use it to modify the edge placement object in such a way that it then automatically associates the missing resource with the edge placement so that the user doesn't have to do this by hand? So that's my thinking. I think we can do a better job there. Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, I think we can do even better than that. I actually dislike having multiple authors for one object, and I think we don't need it. We don't need to have a controller modifying the edge placement object. I think we don't need to wait for an error message from the syncer. I think the controllers in the core already can discern what needs to go additionally, and so that's what I'm working on under the rubric of 1064. But I think these are really talking about the same idea, or at least my interpretation of what to do about them is the same thing, which is to have the controllers that are interpreting the what predicate recognize that implicit in selecting an object is selecting the other objects that define that kind of object.
That's great news. So we don't have to wait for that round trip to happen. That'd be great. All right, cool. I think so. What other things in the edge placement object? So that'll do it for. Do you think that does it just for cluster scoped or non-namespace objects, or do you
Well,
think?
it just it is true and I won't say it's just a coincidence, but the things that define kinds of objects are cluster scoped because in Kubernetes, the definition of a resource or a kind of object is not namespaced. When you define a kind of object, it applies to the whole space. That definition applies to the whole space. So
Mhm.
objects that do those definitions are cluster scoped.
Mhm. Okay, good. So the combination of that and just simply saying, what namespace you're enumerating the namespaces now by name, which is great instead of labeling them. So maybe that's enough. All right, cool. Well, I look forward to testing that when it's available. Does anybody else have any comments or questions for the community? All right, folks. Thanks so much for joining. If there's no further comments or questions, we'll end about 5 minutes early here. Thanks, everybody. I'll see you again in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.